Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Cardinal Dash. King is going to be joining us in just a moment, but so happy to have you all here. As you can see, I'm right in front of Memorial Stadium. I'm in Berkeley here, really just taking in this big game week. Super excited for everything that we have on store, especially in this episode of Cardinal Dash. And thank you, as always, for joining us on Cardinal Dash, because it really is just such a blast having you all here with us every week. King and I know we both really enjoy it, so appreciate you all being here with us and making it the thing that it is. So with that, I'm just going to try and get King set up here, but please stay with us as we do this work, because it should be a ton of fun. And with that, we can welcome King it.
Daniel, you're a genius. Thank you so much for getting me on. And I can't believe that you're going full commit to the bit, getting out in front of California Memorial Stadium. Go ahead and getting some Stanford energy there right away in a week where Stanford's going to need it, in a stadium that's going to be empty, but it's still going to feel very hostile for the Cardinal. And so I think let's just get right into it. There's a lot to talk about with this game. Daniel, in this matchup, we've talked about it really all off season, that for these two Bay Area teams, the quarterback position this year looked like a strength, and maybe for the first time in a while, a strength for both teams. And the question was, which Bay Area quarterback would be better? And so far, the data has been inconclusive, especially since Cal missed a game, Stanford's missed a game, and Davis Mills has only played once all year. But Daniel, coming into this game, who is the better quarterback, Chase Garbers or Davis Mills?
It's not just because I'm right in front of Cal Stadium. I don't want to get beat up, but it's still Chase Garbers for me, and here's why. It's because I said it in the preseason, and just like you said, we haven't learned enough from this season. Both of them have okay stats this year. Neither of them are blowing us out of the water. The thing is, Chase Garbers has beaten Davis Mills, and that's what I'm going on right now if we're comparing them head-to-head. If you look at it, Garbers is 46 for 75 on completions this year. Nothing to write home about. Has 3 interceptions, just above 60% completion rate. Nothing special there. He's also lost 2 games. But historically, he's been much better. He's had a rush TD in 4 straight games before last week. And last week he had 3 touchdowns. So he always produces for you. And it was not his fault they lost either week 1 or week 2, their week 1 or 2. Whereas for Mills, I haven't seen him consistently win games. He was in for that Oregon State game they won last year. He was in for the Washington game as well. But he hasn't shown me that he can win games yet, and that's still what I'm looking for. Can't read too much into what the season has held for him just because he missed a game, and then his other game that he did play, threw a lot of passes, but was also coming off a week in which he had just 45 minutes of practice. So really unfair to judge him too much on that. But he did go 31 for 56, had a lot of yards, 327, but again, on 56 attempts, was just over 55% in completion rate, had the lone touchdown. So I'm still looking for Davis Mills to win games. Do I think he may be the better quarterback long-term? Absolutely. I think he may be one of the best quarterbacks in the conference long-term. But just for right now, he hasn't shown me enough at this level.
You're right that Davis Mills needs to prove he's a winner. I mean, we talk about wins as a QB stat, and I think sometimes that's unfair and overblown. But it is fair to say that Davis Mills' production has not turned into wins thus far, and obviously that was true again in the Colorado game, where the production came in a losing effort and largely in a comeback effort that was never really all that close to being completed, if we're honest. I mean, yes, Stanford got within a possession at the end, but they took way too much time to get there. And so I think, yes, his stats are probably a little bit inflated, but I am still taking Davis Mills as the better QB. And I was a little harsh on Chase Garbers after week 1 when I said he was Chase Garbage. But I want to read you his stat line against a UCLA defense that has been victimized over the past few years of the Pac-12. Chase Garbers, 18 for 33, 122 yards at 3.7 yards per attempt, and he had an interception and was sacked 5 times. Last week, he does throw for 315 yards, but he does have 2 costly interceptions. And in a game that Cal was in until the final minute, I mean, that's a huge difference turning the ball over, whereas Oregon State was able to play a cleaner game. And, Cal does not have an electric offense. They can't make up for turnovers in the same way that say Oregon could. And so if Chase Garbers is going to be the winner that everybody wants to claim that he is, and he was last year, he can't do that this season. And I frankly think that Davis Mills has so much more upside. And though Garbers outplayed Davis Mills, particularly in the second half of last week's game, in this game, I fully expect Davis Mills to come out and look like the better quarterback, and certainly for Stanford to have the significantly better passing attack. Because if you look at the trend over the past couple seasons, Chase Garbers has had his good games, he's had his bad games, but overall he's been a very steady player. Davis Mills, I think, has proven that he is on an upward trajectory, and particularly if we look at some of his high points towards the end of the season last year, I think we can only expect to see more from him. And finally, I think he may have a moment to show Stanford fans what they've all been waiting for. Davis Mills, an elite quarterback on Saturday.
And I totally agree with you that Stanford needs Davis Mills to be that player if they have a chance. I'm just not ready to see it yet because Chase Garbers played out of his mind last year. Earlier today, David Shaw considered it one of the best quarterback performances he's seen against his team. Garbers was 20 for 30, had 285 passing yards, a touchdown through the air, and 72 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground. And that was the difference. And I think that's the element that's putting Garbers over the edge for me right now, is that Mills is a quality quarterback, and we know he is athletic and we can get out of the pocket, but he's not doing it consistently enough. He's not picking up first downs enough for me on the ground. He did against Colorado, and I think that was a lot of growth from where he was last year. But now I want to see it being done consistently. And if he does that against Cal, absolutely. I think he will be the better quarterback going forward. But at the end of the day, quarterbacks, especially at Stanford, are defined by their ability to perform in big games. It's the entire senior class. What you do your senior year means so much. Are you able to win in big game? Last year, Davis Mills and the entire Stanford team, it was obviously not just him, didn't have a great game. He had 2 picks. But the entire team let the seniors down. Stanford lost. And now Davis Mills has to redeem himself because as a starting quarterback, as a senior, he's just absolutely has to. He has the receivers around him. He has an improved offensive line around him. And if he can't win this game, huge tarnish on his legacy.
To talk about it, this is a must-win game, not just for Davis Mills, but for Stanford. To have any chance of doing anything this season, I mean, with the way that they've gotten off to the 0-2 start, obviously Cal has as well. I mean, this is the Pac-12 basement battle. I don't think anybody expected that coming in the season. I think everybody expected that this would be a game between at least 2 middle-tier Pac-12 teams, but both Cal and Stanford have gotten off to a really rough start, and that only heightens the importance of this game because the loser of this game has nothing to play for, and their season is effectively over. And really no chance to go to a bowl game, no chance to salvage anything out of 2020, which already needed a little bit of help. And the winner of this game gets to take home the axe and has a shot at maybe fighting back to 500 and is going to feel like their program is headed in a better trajectory. But I think the other thing about this QB debate is that I would certainly take Stanford's wide receiver core over Cal's wide receiver core. And obviously that's not directly tied to the quarterbacks. But I think if we're going to look at which passing game is going to perform better, I think it has to be Stanford. And if it's not Stanford, if Chase Garbers and Kakoa Crawford and the rest of this Cal passing attack can outplay Stanford in this game, that's a very bad sign. I think that would pretty much automatically mean a loss for the Cardinal. But with the wide receivers that Davis Mills at his disposal, I'm trusting him that he should be able to make those plays down the stretch. And Daniel, I mean, obviously the QB battle is what we've been talking about. It's what we've been talking about all off season, that Davis Mills versus Chase Garbers is the Bay Area battle of this season. And yet that's not the only matchup on the field in this game. I mean, big game, the biggest game of the season for both teams is going to be decided in multiple position groups. So for you, Daniel, what are the biggest matchups of big game?
The one that I'm looking at that's just based on what we've just been talking about is Cal's passing defense, allowing the 8th fewest in the NCAA and 2nd fewest in the Pac-12 passing yards, 175.5 per game. Their opponents, UCLA and Oregon State, both held under 200 yards. Obviously, both of those opponents aren't top tier either. So could be numbers inflated. That's what we have to work with. There's just 2 games. But passing defenses showed up in both of those games. So it's whether or not Davis Mills and that receiving core that we like a lot are able to exploit it. And also, Cal's defense has been really good in the red zone, and Stanford has struggled a lot in the red zone. Cal has allowed just 5 touchdowns and a field goal in 9 appearances in the red zone. That 66.7% conversion rate is tied for first in the Pac-12. So the defense is doing their job for Cal at keeping opponents out of the end zone, out off of field goals even, when they're getting into the red zone. And then we've seen Stanford in their 5 touchdowns only in 9 appearances, do have 2 field goals as well. But that's just not good enough. And we've been talking about it all season long because it's what's been keeping Stanford back, is you have to convert those tries in the red zone. It's absolutely a must, especially as we've talked about. They're not a potent offense that they can drive all over people. You got to finish when you're right at the end. And then one more I want to look at on the offensive side is, or on the defensive side for Stanford, for offensive Cal, is that offensive line, where they've been really decimated by injuries this year as well as by COVID. Braden Rome at left tackle is going to be playing there. We think Cindric and Brandon Mello at left guard and right tackle. All of those are replacing people who have been there a long time. Will Craig, 11 games, 2 starts at left tackle. Valentino Del Tosto, 35 games, 34 starts at left guard. Jake Curhan, 39 games, 39 starts over at right tackle. And then last game, Cal goes in with just 2 who have been playing the whole season. And then Mike Saffel, the center, goes down. So now they're down to Driscoll. All of these are oars on the depth chart, so we don't actually know who's going to be playing. But for that, it's whether or not Stanford can take advantage of that lack of depth for Cal on the offensive line. Stanford has just 1 sack on the season, and I think it's really important if they're able to get some pressure. That would be huge for Stanford.
Yeah, Stanford knows about having huge offensive line depth issues. Obviously, that was the story of last season. And I mean, that alone can wreck your season because you just have no margin for error. And we've seen that Chase Garbers has been running for his life, and Cal has not been able to establish a ground game. And so you're exactly right that battle up front, where Stanford's defensive line has done nothing all season, and Cal's offensive line has done nothing all season. I mean, in the battle of weaknesses, which one can become a strength? I think it's going to be huge. We've talked about it. Stanford's secondary may be improving. It may have a lot of young talent, but it's not elite. It needs help from the pass rush. And so with Chase Garbers having his limitations, but he's still a good quarterback and he's still got good wide receivers. If given time, he'll pick Stanford apart. And more importantly, he'll extend drives with his legs. We've seen that that's what he does so well, and that's what he did to burn Stanford in last year's game. So I'm definitely looking up front. Can Stanford get pressure? But going back to another point you made about the red zone, I'm going to go a little more next level, talk about coaching. It's going to be, can Stanford's aggressiveness be up to the task in this game? Because this is going to be a low possession game. Both teams like to take the air out of the ball. They're content to play slow. I think neither has been able to truly establish the run game this season, but I think we're going to see both try. That's what these coaches like to do, want to play a more low-scoring game. And so red zone possessions are of the utmost importance. They're only going to be heightened in importance. And so I think we're going to see Stanford be able to drive the ball on Cal, frankly. This Cal defense is not where it was last year. They lost a fair amount of talent, and, I mean, with everything that has gone on for both of these Bay Area teams, they've been wrecked. It's been very difficult for the defenses to get up to speed. So Stanford's going to be able to move the ball, but can they finish drives? Because we know Stanford's defense on the other side is going to give up points, and it's just a matter of when that happens. When I was looking at the Colorado game, Stanford mostly outplayed Colorado in that first half, and yet they go in the red zone and don't convert. And so a couple big plays for Colorado swing that game. And then when you don't take advantage of your chances, you can't weather the other team's storm, which was, of course, that huge third quarter. And Cal has not shown that they're a team capable of that offensive storm, but by golly, Stanford's the defense you want to be playing. And so Stanford needs to get in the red zone and not settle for field goals. You have to be aggressive. You have to punch it into the end zone. Be content to go for it on some fourth downs. I think that in a game where possessions are going to be low, scoring is likely going to be, I think there's going to be points, but it's not going to be a game decided in the 40s. It's going to be a matter of which team can take advantage of those opportunities that they get. And I think on both sides of the ball, Stanford has struggled in the red zone.
And Stanford has had good fourth down efficiency. I think they're 3 for 4 in the season. They've also converted twice on 2-point conversions. So they have some plays that they can get in short yardage situations. I think that'll be important to look at as well. And on some points you've made, also going to be very important, special teams is one I'm going to throw out there as well, just because Cal struggled so mightily last game. They basically gave it was a 5-touchdown swing. They had a bunch of mishaps. They had a punt blocked. They had 2 touchdowns that were returned, 2 returns that were returned, nullified by penalties. One that made it all the way into the end zone. The other one, they would have stopped at the 3. And then they gave up other things to OSU. So Cal on the year, punt returns, they're allowing 22 yards per punt, which is just absurd. That's so high. On kick returns, it's 6 attempts, 150 yards. 25 per is also really high. So it's Connor Weddington is likely going to be the one taking the kickoffs for Stanford if he can flip that. But we also know on the other side that Stanford's had its own struggles on special teams this year, specifically in the kicking game. I think that's over for Jet Toner, but it's just interesting that here we are. It's supposed to be midway through a year, and still there's worries about special teams, which is usually something that gets cleared up much earlier in the season just because of where we are. It's an unusual year, and we all know that. So that's something else that I'm going to be looking at.
Daniel, I completely agree, because I think once again that goes into the fact that every possession is going to really matter in this game, and you've got to take advantage of those possessions. But I think that it's safe to say that there's no real favorite in this game. That, I mean, it's close to a pick'em in Vegas, and I feels like that you could go either way with any pick. But who are some players that you're looking forward to break out for Stanford if the Cardinal are able to take back the axe in this game?
For Stanford, they're going to need a big game from Austin Jones and Nathaniel Pete. I think the running backs are going to be key to this for Stanford. If they're able to establish the run game at all, big things will happen, good things will happen. What they kind of have been telling us about Colorado is that Colorado threw a lot of stunts at them that they weren't expecting. And they're never going to take that excuse, but they just weren't prepared for that game as well as they should have been. They were out-coached, and that showed on the field. Now they think they have something against Cal. They think they're going to be able to run the ball effectively, and that's going to be big. I think both of those players, if they can have big games. And then another one, and I've been going through this all year, and I'm sorry about it, but Thomas Booker on the D-line, I want him to show up. If he can show up against that very young offensive line, inexperienced offensive line, rock Chase Garbers once, twice, strip sack, something, some kind of play like that, I could expect it even. That would be huge for Stanford.
I want to see Simi Fehoko take the top off a couple times in this game, because I think that is a place where Cal could be vulnerable. We've seen their secondary is very good. Their passing defense is top 10 in the country right now. But I think it's safe to say that the fact that UCLA was able to run at will in that first game, and that Oregon State can only run the ball, opponent adjusted, it would be hard to say that Cal's pass defense is as good as the stats make it look. And I think that that's a place where Stanford has an athletic advantage, and they have a size advantage. And we've seen them press it in the Oregon game, press the ball down the field maybe too much, not work the middle of the field enough, not give their QBs easy completions. But in this game, I would expect you to see Davis Mills set the ball up with some shorter throws, set it up with a run game, and then hit some play action shots and some deep shots down the field. And that may be where Stanford can separate itself offensively. And defensively, obviously Thomas Booker in the pass rush is going to be where we are both looking. But you're also going to have to see a good performance from these cornerbacks, because Cal has good wide receivers who are going to challenge them down the field. And we've seen that Stanford is basically, it's going to play its game no matter the opponent. They're going to play man coverage. They're going to put their cornerbacks in tough positions. And it's a question of whether or not you can cover and make those plays. But Daniel, big game. It'll be the talk of the week. We'll be addressing it really throughout the weekend mini platform. So check that out. But there's another season waiting for Stanford on the other side of this thing. And Stanford has 2 more games scheduled after Cal, and then another game that we expect to happen on December 19th. Then bowl games only eligible in the Pac-12 if you reach 500. And we don't even know if there's going to be enough games available for all the eligible Pac-12 teams. So, Daniel, what are realistic expectations for the rest of Stanford's season? We'll start with big game. kind of give a general outlook about what you expect is going to happen. You can give a pick if you want to, and then talk about what you expect to see from Stanford the rest of the way.
Well, you did mention the other platforms. I just want to plug donateinkbowl.com right now. There's people in the chat interested about Inkbowl. Please donate to support our student journalism. Stanford Daily going up against the Daily Cal. Just see who can fundraise more, but really everyone's a winner. Just trying to help out student journalism. It's been a really tough year for all of us. So if you have anything, that would be huge. But when you asked this question to me, the first thing that came to mind is that Stanford women's and men's basketball are going to be really good this year. That's what the expectations for the rest of the season are from me. That this football season is all about what Stanford can do against Cal on Friday. That's the only game that is going to matter. It's going to be weird. It's going to be behind me, but there's going to be no one here, no families, nothing. It's going to be the first home game. There's going to be no one up on Tightwad Hill. The cannon's going to be in the stadium. The axe is going to be on the sideline, just sitting there with no one holding it. Everything is going to be weird, but this is a game that matters to everyone so much more than any other game. And honestly, at this point, very different from what I predicted preseason, and I have to shame myself for that. But Stanford is not where I expected them to be, not where they expected themselves to be. So basically, this season comes down to this game and whether or not they can bring the axe back home. It's called the Stanford Axe for a reason. Now Stanford needs to go out and prove it. So for this game, what I'm expecting really is for the defense to be as porous as ever. And I expect Cal to have those chunk yardage plays. I think Cal will also give up those chunk yardage plays like they gave up to Jamar Jefferson last week. But I expect the defense to give up a lot of points. And really, it's going to come down to whether or not the offense can outscore Cal. Stanford's offense has never really had to do that before. They've always been a team where they can rely on their defense, and it was more about holding the opponent to fewer. Stanford's offense, we've been saying it all year, needs to go out and score more than the other team. And from what I've seen so far, what I've seen from Davis Mills, what I've seen from the offensive line, what I've even seen some drops from the receivers that are really uncharacteristic for me, I'm not seeing that the offense can go out and win this game. And if I had to pick it right now, I'm picking Cal. For the rest of the year, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about what it looks like for Stanford. I think if they lose on Friday, demoralizing, and I don't even know where they really go for momentum. This game just means that much. But I think they should be able to get a win against Oregon State. I think that's still a winnable game. Obviously, they were able to beat Cal. But I don't see much from them. I think they got a lot of breaks in that game. I don't see them as a ridiculously tough opponent. And then Washington, obviously, is going to be a much tougher test. We expected that preseason. I thought Stanford was going to have a long runway up into that game with a lot of confidence. Instead, Stanford's probably going to come out into that game fairly dejected. So I'm not seeing anything real positive to see out of that either.
Stanford loses this game on Friday, 0-5 or 0-6 becomes a real possibility. Like I don't think that Oregon State is a guaranteed win. Obviously, they played every opponent tough so far this season. And, you can expect that they're going to keep the game low scoring. They're going to run the ball with Jamar Jefferson. And you're going to be in a fourth quarter game. And, of course, in that situation, anything can happen. They've been knocking on the door 2 out of the last 3 years with Stanford anyway. And Washington, they look like maybe the class of the Pac-12. So in this battle of the Pac-12 basement dwellers, Stanford's got to get a win or else I don't think you can expect anything from this team. On the flip side, if Stanford does get a win, I would say that the Washington-Oregon State games are winnable. Nothing is off the table for the Cardinal either. We know that they are a team that's probably more talented than their performance so far on the field indicates, particularly offensively. And when you have an offense that could explode, whether it ever will, you can potentially be in any game. But in this game versus Cal, I have been going back and forth all week. And really before the season, I decided that in my 3-3 prediction for Stanford, this would be the upset win. And then over the course of the beginning of the season, I'm like, oh, there's no way that Cal is going to be able to hold on to this axe because Stanford is not ready to take it back this season. But then Cal's looked the way they've looked over the past 2 weeks, and they look even more COVID affected than the Cardinal do. I think the lack of practice has really hurt them. I think Chase Garbers is in less of a rhythm than Davis Mills is. And Stanford just got an extra week to prepare. And I think there's a reason why they were not eager to schedule San Jose State or anybody else last week. They got that call. They got the Washington State cancellation, and that was a bummer. I was very excited about that game. I think it might have broken the scoreboard. But ultimately, there's only one game that matters on Stanford's schedule this season, and they just got a free bye week in front of it. And I know that sometimes David Shaw has not looked great coming out of bye week. Sometimes his teams have been a little flat, so that has to change in this instance. But I think it certainly can change, and I think we're going to see a reinvigorated Stanford offense. I think that the Stanford offense is better than the Cal defense this year. That was certainly not the case last season. And so I think Stanford's going to put up some points. Cal will put up some points as well. But rather than Chase Garbers leading a fourth quarter road comeback win, I think this time I see Davis Mills doing the same to Cal, albeit with a much less raucous environment in the stands. And Daniel, if that is to happen, if Stanford is to take back the axe, is there any route forward for the Cardinal to get to a bowl game?
Absolutely. I mean, we saw last year that Stanford was able to beat a very good Washington team. Obviously, that Washington team wasn't as good as we thought, but that game was all about Stanford establishing the run, and they were able to get the after dark upset. So if you have this win, you have this momentum. And I really do think it's about momentum right now for Stanford. Historically, David Shaw has been very good coming off losses, except now Stanford's coming off of 6 straight losses. If that gets pushed to 7, now it's right. It just keeps on building. Stanford needs Friday. They all know it. We were just talking to the players on Zoom. Austin Jones, who's from Bishop O'Dowd, has heard from all of his coaches, all of his friends about Cal beating Stanford last year. They were all telling him, you should have gone to Cal. Same thing with Foster Sorrell, Gabe Reed, who are seniors and are talking about how important this game means to them. They've basically circled this one as the one on the schedule, as we've been talking about. They're saying this is the must-win game. So if Stanford can get this win, have some confidence, absolutely, they can get to a bowl game. I wouldn't put it past them, right? We're very doom and gloom right now because everything we've seen in these 2 games doesn't give us confidence. However, a season as short as 3 games it would be, if you have one good performance, now you have something to build on, right? The stats look weird right now because they're just 2 games, which is weird to say in November. But if Stanford can put together a full 60-minute game, and honestly, I think the most we've seen is maybe a half out of the defense and maybe 15 minutes, a quarter out of the offense, a 60-minute game, and beat Cal, then you have a recipe for success. You finally have some good tape to watch. That will be huge going up against very good Washington team.
Listen, if you're Chase Garbers coming into this game, you're facing one of the worst pass defenses in the country, in the 120s out of 120 odd something FBS teams that have played in 2020. This is your chance to prove that you are the quarterback that Cal fans think you are. On the flip side, we talked about it for Davis Mills. This is a chance to prove that you are the quarterback that the recruiting rankings thought you were, and that Stanford fans hope that you will be. And it goes deeper than that. Obviously, you talk about this is the biggest game of the season for both teams, and I think this is the one that everybody has circled. But ultimately, I think the thing I'm most excited about in this game is to see which quarterback performs better and which defense can come out with some big plays, maybe special teams plays that turn this game. And I'm certainly hoping that Stanford can come in there and just blow the socks off the Bears, blow the Bears out of their own stadium. And I think that would make whatever else happens in this 2020 season worth it. But Daniel, let's not talk about depressing things like Stanford football, because that has been very depressing for a while. Stanford women's basketball is tipping off on Wednesday. Stanford men's basketball was supposed to, but Utah Valley got COVIDed. So we will not be seeing the Cardinal on the court until the Maui Invitational, I believe. But Daniel, predictions for Stanford men's basketball, Stanford women's basketball, how far do each of them go in the tournament that's hopefully going to happen this March?
Stanford women's basketball has a ceiling right around the Final Four this year. They're ranked 2 in the preseason. I love that team. Such a fun team to watch. Have a great freshman class, Cameron Brink, Jana Van Geitenbeek, and then watching Haley Jones again this year is going to be an absolute blast. And then on the men's side, Zaire, what is this? This is Stanford. We're going to get a one-and-done guy at our school for the 2nd year in a row. That's absurd. So really excited to see what they do. Hard to really piece it together. I think it's going to be weird not seeing Ty. So I'm going to want to watch those Maui games before I make anything. But I think they could get to the second weekend of the tournament without a doubt, just if all of the talent comes together.
Final Four for the Stanford women, and for the Stanford men, I think they're going to make the tournament. I'm going to go with a second round exit, but I'm really hoping to be proven wrong. I'm hoping this team is top 25 caliber. Daniel, we're going to be talking a lot of basketball because no matter what happens on the field on Friday, we know that Stanford is going to be kicking butt on the court all winter, and particularly Cal, because Cal sucks at basketball. And frankly, both these teams suck at football. So I hope everybody enjoys a Black Friday big game that it's got a lot of entertainment factor, and it is the game that matters for both teams. Go Card, take back that axe, and we will be talking about it all next Tuesday. And we'll have a crossover show with Bear Dash later this week to discuss a little more and get into some more trash talk with those boys from Berkeley. But for Daniel Martinez Crams, I'm King Jemison. Thank you for listening to Cardinal Dash. Go out and follow us on all the social medias. Go out and follow at Sports Pac-12 as well for some great columns, including from our boy Daniel Martinez Crams. And we thank you so much for listening. We'll see you back here next week.